So for
Digital
tonight,
horror.
besides the Roadmap Roundup and the Delta Report, we also have a Spectrum Pulse because there's been a lot of conversation about RaStar since it was on Inside Star Citizen the other day, and a lot of people were really interested because it's like, oh, we haven't heard anything about RaStar in over a year. Well, we have. We just haven't seen anything. And we haven't seen anything as far as the tool being used, but we have seen the products of the tool being shown off. And when we show you these things and refresh your memory a little bit, you're like, oh my gosh, they have been using RaStar all year long. We just haven't been watching them actually do it, but we've seen the byproduct of it. So RaStar was initially shown off in the during CitizenCon 2951, so last year. And it's a tool made by the Planet Tech team, actually. It's not from um, the Montreal Tools team, who did all the work on Mighty Bridge and the procedural locations tool, which we know that the Planet Tech team has been working super hard on getting out the procedural planets procedural planets version 1, 2, 3, and 4. We're on version 4 right now, and updating all that. They also showed off the initial viewing of the rivers during that segment. And but yeah, the RaStar is really cool because, like the procedural locations tool, it allows the developers to really quickly make locations. The procedural locations tool is really a tool for making locations that are within within a structure. And by when I say that, I mean um, primarily they use it for the caves. So going down under the planet, it's self-contained within a sort of
Okay.
architecture,
I think we
or
were thinking of
the
Todd Pappy.
Todd Pappy. There we go. Or the underground facilities, which again go down underneath the planet, but you can see it's a structure underneath something, um, and then space stations. So this is the exterior of the space station, and they have all of it working and nested around inside it. Whereas RaStar is on the surface of planets and moons. It's a tool that allows them to rapidly deploy um, the outposts and settlements, and the derelict settlements as well, onto the surface in a way that is really quick and easy for them to use, so that they can get these things out very quickly and in a way that's systemic, and functional with other game systems. So it's really cool, and we're gonna take a deep dive into it. After they announced it, we had never heard of it before, but after they announced it at CitizenCon last year, they updated us in the Roadmap Roundup for October 20th, 2021. RaStar, developing and implementing RaStar, a tool that allows the placement of modular structures on planet surfaces, including the deformation of surrounding terrain to accommodate it. This will eventually be used by players to place their own structures, such as with the Consolidated Outland Pioneer. So when they said this, everybody lost their damn minds. We're like, oh, they're finally working on the tool in order for us to build our own bases. Sweet.
I also
But that's
found
the
the
other.
quote about the Pioneer being turned into a fabrication facility and not a prefab facility.
Oh, do you have it up? I'll
It's by
pull your
Chris
screen up.
Roberts.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. Cool. Well, I mean
Finally.
that's as authoritative as it gets.
Absolutely.
Yeah, the literal horse's mouth, or horse's ass, depending on who
You
you
called
ask.
Chris Roberts a horse.
Yeah. Um,
Oh man.
but that's the other big part of it is not only does it allow placement of these structures, but it also automatically um, makes the terrain conform to those structures. Just like if you were building a house now, you'd have somebody come in and flatten the building site for you. It's the same thing, and they don't have to do it. Um, they don't have to have someone else come in and make a flat space for it. You don't have to worry about things popping through the bottom of structures anymore. So um, let's And I'm going to pull up my notes real quick because I don't have those up. So so what I did is we'll watch the first bit and I'll sort of narrate as we're going through it. What I did is I clipped all of the shiny bits from the video showing RaStar from ISC as well as from CitizenCon. And I turned them into one video. And so we're going to watch that first bit, and so you can see it, and I will narrate with the sort of I wrote down a few bullet points from that presentation. So we'll pull that up in F11, and we'll play it. And so the goal is to replace the previous placement system based on prefabs to a better object container oriented solution. And the object container bit is very you need to keep that in your mind, because the fact that these outposts are their own object containers is a part of the entire systemic solution, not just the being able to place them quickly. And so they can be used for homesteads, like we see here, or even the derelict settlements, which we've already seen in game. Those were made via RaStar. It's the same system, but we initially, Nazeris and I were both like, well, wait a minute. They talk about, derelict settlements, but we also have the derelict ships. Well, the procedural locations tool is what does the derelict ships, the crash ships and everything. Part of the procedural locations tool is making it so that way when ships crash, it randomizes. If you remember seeing that little clip of the reclaimer crashing into the ground and breaking into multiple pieces, so that way it does it automatically. A designer doesn't have to take break the ship apart and place the pieces all over the place. It literally does it based off of how they want to simulate that crash, as well as like the dirt trail as the reclaimer or whatever it is, plows into the planet. That's the procedural locations tool. The derelict settlements is RaStar. But it's a modular system, as you can see here, and they're just clicking and placing, but they can also take one piece and then add another piece onto it in order to make something completely different. And not only is it a modular system for the actual buildings and structures themselves, but it's also modular in that they have all these overlays that they can put onto the different types of structures in order to make it look differently and create infinite combinations based off what they're going for as part of the design. And it's not just the exterior. So here's exterior overlays, and you can see them just, clicking, okay, I've got this, these overlays, I'm going to place this one, this one, this one, and it automatically nests in there. It gives them a little preview of what it'll look like. Boom, it's done. The designer doesn't have to come in and individually place all these things. Boom, done. Boom, done. And they can also do it for the interior. They have interior overlays. So people didn't get it, but when they were showing off the settlement as part of the keynote speech or keynote thing in CitizenCon 2951, all of that was done using RaStar. That's why they're showing this off. Does it look familiar? Because it was a settlement made with RaStar, and they were demonstrating what they did with RaStar. People didn't connect the dots. But the interior is made the same way as the exterior with overlays. It's blank room and overlay. And they have multiple they've been working really hard to create tons and tons of different overlays that they can just throw in there based off what they need, the designers need. And yeah, so the artists create lots of small modular parts, whether they're exterior structures or not just only structures, but also, I don't know Nazeris, what do you think, what would you call like the refinery sections, the farming bits, I don't know what to call those. Whoops.
Production modules.
Yeah.
Building modules in your production modules.
Yeah, production modules is a good
or
name for
functional
it.
modules.
Yeah, because it's not just a hab module. It's that they've performed some other function. And they've been showing those off to us with the refinery looking things, and there's been like greenhouse ones and
Solar panel ones, server ones.
Yeah.
I think I have literally every
Storage.
thumbnail they've shown on ISC saved to my computer. So,
but you can see how they're as they're
staring at
placing
those.
it, the terrain automatically deforms and creates sort of a foundation, a foundation to put it on. So let's go back to the browser. And so they mentioned they've been talking and before we do that, so it was an unannounced thing on the progress tracker, and then they made it announced. And RaStar has been worked on by the Planet Tech team since before at least the beginning of the advent of the progress tracker in January 2021, because the progress tracker doesn't go back before this. So they've probably been working on it even longer. They've been working on that tool for a long time. And so they have been working on it for a long time, and then they showed it off to us here, and they've been continuing to work on it ever since, and now it's getting a VFX update as well. But we'll just go through a couple of the monthly report updates, and then we'll watch the rest of that clip that I made and show you a few images to demonstrate what they're doing. Work continued towards final on the colonialism outpost, because that's the theme that we're seeing right now. That's not the only theme that we're going to see. It's just one theme of as far as the outpost structures go. They will make more themes, just like they're going to use RaStar for more than just outposts, with more variants and modules being completed in conjunction with the new RaStar tool. Gaining a wider feature set, the team began dedicated playtesting in the lead up to wider distribution across the systems they'll first be seen in. So there's the greenhouse, as Nazeris coined them, the production modules. That one maybe like it looks like it's part of maybe it's water storage. That's cool.
Water storage, fuel storage.
Look at how big this farm is compared to the little domed ones that we see on moons right now. Like
those ones you can actually
more of them
farm
here.
with.
Yeah, there's a lot of
food. It's like they're built to metric for some reason. Why would they build a farm to metric, I wonder?
Yeah. Space farming. Yeah. But this was in the March monthly report. And where did it go? There it is. Yeah. The Planet Tech team this is the June monthly report. The Planet Tech team focused on bug fixes to help unblock the sandbox teams. They also looked at module placement fine-tuning for RaStar and further developed automatic placement validation. That's not RaStar. July. Was it in this one?
Yeah, the automatic placement stuff is all the props. That's what they're talking about with automatic placement.
Yep. Yeah, automatic placement. So that way, it's just a click and boom. A designer doesn't have to go in and fine tune hardly anything. Collision detection was added to RaStar to prevent modules from being placed when they overlap with geometry too. I'm thinking they're talking about planetary geometry in this one, or something different. Because it's supposed to it deforms the terrain around it.
Unless they want to, use it for underground bunkers and they need to clip through the terrain.
Yeah. The other thing is maybe geometry from like other overlays and modules, so that way like you can't place a structure on top of the farm and have everything get all jacked up. And there we go.
August 22.
August 2022, the RaStar tool also received a usable tech refresh to make it usable with built-in editor tools, while additional efforts were made to improve stability, usability, and responsiveness. And we'll talk more about that here in a few minutes when we get back to the video, because I've got more notes from that section as well, from the ISC. September 2022, the Planet Tech team are in the process of delivering RaStar V1. So the full, what they've been using right now is they've been using the tool for like over a year now in order to, actually well over a year now. As they've been developing the tool, they've been using it, the developers, in order to provide feedback to the people making the tool so they can add more features, do more bug fixing. Essentially, the developers who are using the tool and have been for a year plus now are doing exactly what we're doing for Star Citizen itself. They get a tool, they get the tool handed to them, like, okay, you can use this in order to make a outpost, slash settlement. And, okay, I'm going to do this, this, and this. Okay, here's my feedback. It's really good for this, but we needed to do that. I ran into this bug. This caused it to crash. And they continue to work on it in order to get it out to version 1. Let's see, Blizzrad, do you think they will let us populate our outposts with our own choices of furniture? Yes.
Yes.
Yep.
There are concept images of several different furniture outlet. There you go. Furniture stores. I've seen a IKEA-esque, basically just cheap furniture, but also a luxury version. That may be something I could do. I could do a Spectrum Pulse on not Spectrum Pulse, a scanner anomaly on shops. I'm going to put that in the document.
Yeah. Well, because not only would you be buying furniture for your outpost out in BFE outside of the UEE, but also furniture for your apartment, your luxury
I don't think I want
apartment that you
turtle
have.
furniture in my apartment.
Yeah, but you that's why there's multiple different types. Like Naz was talking about, different the high end, medium and low end.
It's the reason, like, I doubt anyone here has seen any of my Star Citizen streams, but every time I walk past a bench, I'm like, I want that in my apartment because we'll have that ability eventually.
Yep.
Unfortunately, player apartments was removed.
Yeah.
And that's farther down the road now, but eventually we'll have apartments and we'll have entire bases that we can build. And yes, we will be able to furnish them. Even bigger ships we'll be able to furnish.
Yeah. Yeah, eventually you will be able to place those things. And when we're using RaStar, I imagine that not only will you be able to place the structures, but you'll be able to place certain overlays, but more overlays as far as function, less as far as design. Like, I don't think they're going to give us access to the pirate outlaw overlay just so you can make it look dirty and dingy. You're going to be able to build your own base as if it's being built brand new. With different forms and function, and then you'll be able to populate it with your, okay, here it's got the bar, kitchen area in it, and then you'll be able to put things in it. So it'll be.
I imagine we could get like crates or something, like overlay crates. So we go to let's just say Area 18, and we buy like the bar kit, and we haul that over to where we're building our base, and we go into the God mode, RaStar, whatever function that takes for the player. And then we just apply local overlay, and it just takes that crate and applies it to whatever module we're trying to apply it to.
Yeah, all the decorative stuff though, I think that's going to be on you, not part of RaStar. That'll be you placing things in game.
Yeah. Just remember the not iCache, the now what was it? The entity graph is a almost limitless possibility of items anywhere and everywhere because the graph form of data management is so fast and cheap to computationally cheap. You placing banners all over your wall, carpets all over the place, just sacks of stuff everywhere is just okay to do. So being an interior designer in these spaces can totally be a thing. Something we're going to talk about later. We're going to bring up iCache again. That's going to be fun. It wasn't fast enough. It wasn't robust enough. It wasn't cheap enough to do this kind of data movement with all these different items. So, yes, interior design will be a thing. Exterior design will be a thing.
Yeah. So this, as they're getting ready to release RaStar V1, this part's really interesting. The Planet Tech team are in the process of delivering RaStar V1, the internal tool used to build modules and populate planetary environments with outposts, derelicts of outposts and settlements, and cities. This is the first time they said the city part. That's why this is very important, because like, whoa, you're going to use RaStar for what? And the way that they're making it is so that way designers can, just like they built the modules, they can build modules of cities instead of it just being a module that's just a part of a structure. It'll be a module with like a neighborhood based off of a type of design, and it'll have everything in it, and they can lay it out. It'll be like, like Sim City, instead of just doing the RTS base builder that they're showing you now. It'll be more of a Sim City type tool for the developers in order to build cities at scale, and then those cities will function like that.
Now, they haven't said if players are going to build cities, which I just want to make that clear.
We're not
However,
yeah, I can guarantee that.
the way to curtail just a player making a city the size of a moon, you still have land claims. And you still have the entire quanta system to be able to do exactly whatever CIG wants it to do. So let's say you decide, I'm going to go build somewhere not lawful. So the land claims are free. The problem is, if you run across resources, or if you get too big, like, you will have to manage that city. We're assuming we're going to build cities here. You have to get the resources to build it, which means you're probably going to want a return on investment. And if you're building an unlawful place, you're already cutting out let's call it 70% of the population. We'll just use that as just a throwaway number. 70% of the entire game's population that is only lawful, players and NPCs. So you're already losing profit there, and you have to make sure those outlaw NPCs aren't trying to steal your stuff, aren't trying to blow you up. So more than likely, if you're trying to build something at a scale of a city, you're going to want lawful space. You're going to be certified by the UEE as a town, and get the protection that a land claim has. So they have tools and levers that they can pull on to make sure that you're not doing like city building, like place this city here, place that city here, place there, just bringing about useless things all over the place. The land claim system is a big thing for that.
Yeah, land claims, and do you have the funds? Even if you're just a mega millionaire in SC, building your own city, I don't think that'll I don't think anyone's going to be that rich. Even orgs, and
a Squadron City.
And doing that in unlawful space means that someone has to bring all those materials there. So, but I do, like, as far as your outpost, like Blizzard says, if I can build an apartment block on a land claim, that will be incredible. I don't see why you couldn't build a
build an apartment block, though. Think of this as a city builder or an RTS. To build an apartment building, you need your prerequisites. So in something like City Skylines, to build houses that are worth a darn, you need electricity, you need water, and waste management.
Mm-hmm.
So your land claim is, what, a kilometer big? You have to fit now an apartment block. We have power generation to power that, and the water management, and the waste disposal. And so all of that has to fit on your 1 kilometer block. It's not going to be just one land claim for a city. Plus, you're going to need parking. Plus, you're going to need, I assume, like, you want your apartment to do something, not just be a parking lot with a housing block next to it. So, factories or a miner, refinery, weapons manufacturing. They have thrown around the idea of letting us have factories, basically buildings that just do something internally that we don't interact with, that could produce something like weapons. So we get the blueprint, we can become a production facility for Grey Cat multi-tools or Bearing P4IR or something like that. I thought they were 4K by 4K. They may while.
I never paid attention to the land claims, honestly, so I can't speak with any sort of authority.
Oh, they made such a thing.
But yeah, the developers being able to use RaStar in order to make cities is really huge, because this is everybody always 4K, says.
Yeah. Okay, so there was 2.
What? Oh, 2 different types?
Yeah, there was the plot, which is a 4K by 4K, and an estate claim, which is 8K by 8K.
Oh, an estate. That sounds fancy. That's why I don't have one. But this is with how fast they can place things with RaStar, and how quickly artists can make overlays and structures and modules things in order to add to RaStar. When people, the detractors of Star Citizen, always talk about, oh well, it's taken them this long to build one system. Well, okay, that's a misnomer in itself. And you have all these other landing zones, and those are going to take forever. No, they're building tools so that way it doesn't. When they finally get around to making Terra, in the not too distant future, or even sooner than that, when they get around to making Sherman on Cascom in the Castra system, they're going to do it with RaStar. Because if you look at the here, we're gonna pull it up. Sherman, Cascom, Castra. So this construction style is called monumentalism. And if you're looking for an interesting video on all the different architectural styles within Star Citizen, Space Tomato did one. Ironically, it wasn't Morphologist; it was Space Tomato, and he did one, but Space Tomato did one, and he even has like a timeline for when these different styles came in vogue throughout the life of the UAE. But this is Sherman, the city in the clouds on Cascom. Look at these structures. Look at the way that the city is laid out. And there's like the skyline and everything. But this is, this and the skyline, easy. Like they can do that. That's not a problem at all. But the other parts, like this is totally within the remit of RaStar. That there is no reason that they can't make RaStar do stuff like this with the way that they're building it, and in short order. And all they're going to do is just add different modules and different structures and different construction and different architectural styles for the developers to place these things. Yeah, Blizzrad, don't spoil it. Come on now, wait, we're getting there.
Somebody's reading ahead.
Blizzrad trying to do his extra credit and get points and stuff. But yeah, so and cities. So October's tasks included bug fixes and usability improvements to better support production requirements. All these things so that way they can get things done faster and be more efficient. And then the October monthly report, the team closed out RaStar V1 and fixed the remaining bugs and crashes raised by the content teams. There were also various fixes submitted for rivers, and R&D began on WaterSim, blah, blah, blah. So RaStar V1 is out there. It's stable, it's working, it has its initial tool set, and the content teams are already going nuts with it. And you'll see what I mean by that here in a few minutes. But now they have the full initial version and with its initial feature set, but the Planet Tech team isn't done, and the artists and everything who have been making all the assets for RaStar are not done. They're going to continue to add more tools to it and add more features to the tool, but the base functions for it and the stable usability for it is out there and ready to go. And so the next thing that we wanted to look at is the sprints for Outpost, Homestead, Independent, and Outlaw. And a small home for AI to live and shelter. They consist of a central hub and a few optional internal and external modules. They provide the basic necessities to support a small group of people for an indefinite amount of time. So they've been working on the Independent and Outlaw themed outposts for a long time, because these are the sort of the primary ones for Pyro. That's why they've been working on these. But they'll also be in Stanton, as we'll hear in a minute. Outpost theme variants. So they've not only, these are the first two, but now they're making variants. And these are, they're adding, when they say variants, they mean the overlays to the outposts in order to take those base structures, those modules that you saw them placing, and adding different overlays in order to make variants of them for different functions, as well as the production modules that we're calling them now. You heard it here first, the Pathfinders podcast production modules. So adding themed variants to colonialism outposts. Whoops, these guys. So adding themes to these. Oh no.
We screw up a tab.
I accidentally clicked the wrong thing. Adding theme variants to colonialism outposts, which allows us to create different points of interest in the world. Themes will range from abandoned, mining, research, and many more. So depending on what the function of it is, they will put different overlays onto and different, not only will they create different layouts, but they'll add different overlays to it in order to give those outposts a theme as well, and a theme that also fits a function. And those things that they are adding to it will have function. And they've shown it to us in an ISC recently, where they showed that you would be able to go up and interact with different item ports on like the refinery looking production modules. So let's go back to the video, and we're going to watch the bit that I clipped from the recent ISC, and I will narrate that clip with a few of the notes that I took. So RaStar is currently in use, placing outposts throughout both Stanton and Pyro. Stanton and Pyro. So obviously they're showing us work on Pyro. I forget which planet that is. Pardon me. Oh man. But if you look here, the UI is a lot different than it was here. And so one of the improvements they've made is they've been making a lot of changes to the UI and the usability.
They made sure no underscores.
Yeah.
So for a little bit of context on the comment,
go for it.
The underscores, when you have underscores in your title or name or whatever, not title, not like gameplay or title, but like in UI things, is almost always an in-dev thing. The fact that this UI now has no underscores is telling that it is a close to, if not a final production thing. This is the version 1 that we've been talking about, or that Tree's been talking about. So seeing it go from everything has underscores in it to now everything doesn't, it's a small thing, but it is a clear sign of being at least close to production ready.
Yep. Quote at the beginning of the video, so the whole purpose of RaStar is to make it easier for the devs to place locations at the surface of a planet, and in the end, it will be the system for players to build their bases, reiterating that we're going to be using a version of this tool in order to build our bases. So the changes that they've made since they first showed it to us, changes, it changes the planet and terrain required. Let's see. Oh yeah, so before RaStar, anytime the Planet Tech team came in, or Planet Content team came in and made changes to the planet, we're going to add a valley here or some hills there, they would have to go back and replace all of the outposts on the planet in order to make sure that they were properly aligned with the terrain. And so any changes to any planet, any revisions or moon, required somebody to go back in and recheck all their work with the outpost placement. That's why there's a lot of bugs with the current outposts that we have. So, but RaStar directly follows the terrain topology And so that's no longer required. If the planet content team adds, a river, a canyon, a mountain, the RaStar modules will automatically adjust the terrain around them, so that way they remain in place and still function appropriately.
I wonder if, let's say, they place down an outpost and then a different developer adds a river. Will the river see the raised terrain that the outpost made and snake around the raised terrain that the outpost made?
I imagine it should. I don't
Depends
know.
on which kind of order they do it. Wow, that would. This is
Yeah.
why they have dynamic tools, because that kind of stuff, like, you can't plan for that.
Same team though, so hopefully they're talking to each. I imagine they're talking to each other, because the guy in the, it was the RaStar presentation came after the Rivers presentation from the
Hmm.
Planet Content team, as part of the Planet Content team presentation from CitizenCon 2951. So I
Yeah.
imagine they're smart enough, but it'd be pretty cool if there was an outpost that had, a riverfront outpost, or one with a lake view.
Or I want a river running through it and a bridge over it.
Mm, yeah, yeah, or if it's on either side of it and there's a bridge connecting the
Yeah,
two
that's what I mean. Yeah.
parts of the settlement. Yeah, that
Hmm.
would look really cool. Um, so yeah, with RaStar, it allows for a lot more granularity and modularity of the locations, as well as because they can produce them so quickly, which you saw in the first bit of the video, and now you can see them here very quickly making, um, a location, basically in its entirety, in a matter of minutes. Um, but the changes that the since last CitizenCon, is they added a whole bunch of UI updates, which you saw here, and enhancements that improve their productivity, and ease of use. So what they did is they were able to nest in a whole bunch of the things that go together. So that way, oh, I'm going to put a hub here, or an entry here, and then by putting it, it automatically opens up the things that are nested into it. So it gives you options automatically to, okay, you don't have to go looking for the different overlays for it in order to place it, and then give it character. It's just automatically right there. They're grouped together as part of the new UI system. And this is building blocks, so it works really well as they're making things for it. Um, the other really cool thing, um, whoops, why does it do that? The other really cool thing, and this is kind of like what they did with Mighty Bridge, and I almost wonder if they used Mighty Bridge for it, in order to do this, but they were able to make it so that with RaStar, they were able to integrate it with different tools, and I don't know what these tools are, but and I didn't write down the names, but when he was presenting on it, he said we were able to integrate it with a bunch of tools that devs use within the editor, so the editor in game, um, uh, so that way things just automatically are placed, or they automatically function. Um, it's really efficient system, kind of the way Mighty Bridge works with the editor. It allows devs to use tools and software from outside the editor and automatically bring things into the editor, into and essentially into the engine. Um, the other really smart bit, as you can see, this is really cluttered. There's a whole bunch of things that they've added in with the overlay, and like all of these things are essentially, um, every single thing that they have placed as part of this overlay, every single individual thing is an entity. And so what they did is they converted over the object containers um, for RaStar and the outposts that they create, into streaming object containers. So that way, RaStar and all the outposts created with RaStar function with PES, and these things will quickly and efficiently stream in and out, but are also quickly and efficiently stored, and edited. So it doesn't. It is not, like Nazareth was saying, it is not computationally difficult or challenging for the server and the client to stream these things in and out, um, of the game, uh, compared to how it would have been otherwise, compared to how things are with the current outpost system. So that's super interesting to me. Um, the connector system. So the connector system is basically this: when they're placing parts of a module and then adding another part in order to create an entire structure, they call that the connector system. Well, the connector system not only allows it to designers to place things like that and make it just fit in order to make whatever type of structure they want, but they've also converted over the connector system to the item port system. And the item port system is what will allow these outposts to work as part of resource management. So the item port system, when we saw that video a while back, and I should have gotten the clip, but I forgot about it, where you can interact with the different production modules and everything else that requires resources as part of the outpost. That will all be plugged into the resource network system, so that way these outposts, based off of what they place, will automatically factor into that system and generate production and need, based off of, okay, well, we need this to make power, but if we have power and this, we produce this, blah blah blah. So it's actually a living, breathing environment. And so you can see here, if we go back to the beginning, you can see that they place some modules, and it's kind of simplistic, and you've got some overlays, the initial ones that we got shown, and then there's a interior overlay. So here's the homestead, the outpost homestead. They're showing us that, but then here's the exterior. So independent and outlaw, the ones that we saw last year were the independent ones, the lawful looking ones. Here's an example of an outlaw exterior themed variant with all sorts of different overlays placed on it to make it look like an outlaw theme. And this would be like a homestead one. They've got their gardens, your habs. But then they also showed us the interior overlays that they are working on for a little bit farther, for the outlaw ones. And you can see how this is way different. But all of these items, these aren't placed individually. These are placed as part of an overlay, just like this guy. And it's just an overlay that somebody created, and then a designer clicks and drops it, and it's ready to go. And so they've created tons and tons of interior overlays in order to add variety to these outlaw outpost themes, the outlaw themed of the themes of these outposts. And it's super cool. And you can see how it's really easy for them to add and remove things and change the entire look and feel and function with just a few clicks, because artists have been hard at work creating all of these different overlays that are really easy to place. And all of this stuff is functional. It ties into all the systems. There's, here's an example of the production modules that we were talking about, like some sort of refinery system, with storage for probably, maybe quantum fuel over here and hydrogen fuel over here, or vice versa. Really cool to think about that all this stuff is going to, not just look cool, but actually function within the game and within the game's economy.
Actually, those blades are cooling racks. The refinery is the big tall one.
Okay. See, I don't know about that stuff.
I have every thumbnail.
Yeah. But you can see they've not only been working on the independent and outlaw, but we're also very likely going to be seeing the additional themes in the near future. They just showed us in both the CitizenCon presentation and the ISC one, the independent and outlaw themes for the outposts, the homestead outposts. But these other ones aren't, they're going to be outposts, but they're not going to be homesteads. They're going to be outposts for mining, outposts for research, abandoned ones, other different things. they're not going to be homesteads. It's not going to be someplace that, it's not going to be based around you live there or a gang lives there, if that makes sense.
Could you imagine if next Citizen Con is welcome to Cascom?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh my gosh, I would have a stroke. But here's a really great image from the subscriber vault showing, how, what this looks like at night, without all the overlays placed on it. And it's still that same base structure with a few things dropped onto it as part of the connector system. But then they just drop overlays on it and it makes it look entirely different. Same with the interior. You're like, oh my gosh, this must have taken forever. No. Designers, went through and they were able to quickly make these overlays. And it's, a lot of work. But then once the overlay is made, they can put different overlays in, together in combination in order to create infinite variety. And it's not just for, they're showing us the ones for the homesteads for independents and outlaws, but there's going to be a whole lot more in the very near future. And so the most important quote at the end of the IFC, and we're just going to listen to Jared say it. Because it's super important. Because it's not, we just went through the Roadmap Roundup and the Progress Tracker and the Shiny Tracker Delta Report. But wait, there's more.
Salvage in the not too distant future, and that the RaStar tool, first introduced at last year's CitizenCon, is already being used to populate the planets of Pyro in next year's 4.0 and Stanton in this December's upcoming Alpha 318. Now don't forget that this year
nobody's saying anything about that. Nobody is saying anything about, wait a minute, we're getting Outposts in 318 in Stanton? Everybody, when it gets to this part, so many people just tune out of ISC or don't, or have already left.
Yeah.
But this is
that's where they hide the nice stuff.
This is a huge announcement.
And that the RaStar tool, first introduced at last year's CitizenCon, is already being used to populate the planets of Pyro in next year's 4.0 and Stanton in this December's upcoming Alpha 318. Now don't forget,
I cannot tell you how excited I am because they told us a while back, and I don't have the they stopped on next year's Pyro before listening anymore. Exactly, Robert. And this is the context that so many people miss because they don't pay attention. That's what Nazeris and I do. We are all about the devil in the details. But when they, I forget, Nazeris, do you remember where they said that they told us that there was going to be like 52 outposts in Pyro?
It was the smallest comment somewhere. It
I
might
can't
have
remember
been
where they
the
said
Chris
that.
Tyler talk. It might have, like, it was a small comment, just like, and the 50, we're adding like 50 something to Pyro.
I can't remember if it
and
was
everyone,
in a live
everyone
thing.
assumed, like, yeah, sure, after we get Pyro and crap.
Yeah, Pyro will launch with 52 outposts, but if they're already building them for Stanton, and they have 52 for Pyro, that means there's probably going to be quite a few getting added to Stanton.
And that is, we're getting these outposts alongside, or these homesteads and, what are they called? They're specifically homesteads and outposts, not outposts, possibly outposts. Anyway, in addition to the ones we already have.
Yeah.
They're not removing the old metal box outposts. Those are semi-permanent, newer structures. The style we have are much older, permanent structures.
Yeah. Well, and the ones that we're getting, I wonder if they're going to be limited on where they place them. Like you'll see them on Hurston and maybe Daymar. Because it would look, I mean, have they created variants in order for them to be placed so that way they look at home on Microtech? But either way, those are not listed on the release view. Those are going to be the getting outposts in Stanton is going to be one of those things that is added to 318. Oh, by the way, because 318 was delayed, well, we were already working on these, and so we're going to drop them as part of 318. And you'll probably see them get added to the release view, like right before 318 drops, if not like after the fact, because they've done that before.
I believe about to say it's funny. They used to say that they were hitting an entity limit for Stanton, but they keep finding ways to cram stuff in. They said that most right before they removed Nix, and right after they removed Nix, they also got server-side OCS working, which gave them a lot of headroom for adding entities. On top of that, they've been optimizing, and PES basically just uncaps that completely.
Yeah.
Like, obviously, there is some theoretical limit. I'm sure they probably know where it is by now.
Well, so the PES makes it so that way the server can stream entities in and out, because the server-side object container streaming gave them some ability to do that, but a lot of things didn't stream in and out. Even that they were permanently on the server once they were loaded in. The other thing is it would stream it out of processing. It would still be in memory, and so like when a server loads up, the server loads up with everything in the universe in memory. As far as like a base version of the universe, and then
until
more
players
things
start
get
adding
added.
their own crap in.
Yeah, and then more and more things get added, and that's how the servers run out of memory. Well, now the server will not load up with all that stuff in memory, and it won't store it in memory once it loads it up. It'll only bring it into memory and into processing when it needs it, and when it's done with it, it'll update it, and it'll be updating it the entire time, but it'll update it at the end and say, okay, it's streaming out. It is no longer in memory, no longer in processing. So server-side object container streaming helped a bit. It didn't give the performance gains that they wanted, because the server still ran out of memory. The processing capacity was still there for longer, but the server would eventually still run out of memory and still had an overhead count. But yeah, the PES is super exciting, and like the PES is allowing for things like these outposts. These outposts are built in order to take advantage of PES. That we wouldn't have seen them. We probably would have seen them in like a 319 patch, afterwards, because they needed PES as part of 318, and they just weren't ready yet. Well, now that 318 is so late that it's basically what 319 was going to be, we're getting a lot more added to it than we would have thought. So and those little cheeky announcements that people miss out on. Congratulations, you guys who have been hanging out with us in chat, you're like, oh my gosh, everybody else missed that, but, and you can go forth and spread the good word that, Jared said live on camera, and he wouldn't have said it live on camera if it wasn't going to be a thing, that outposts are coming to Stanton in 318. There you have it. But that is all that we have for this evening's episode of the Pathfinders podcast.
Did you want me to read the bit on the Pioneer?
Oh, yeah, you have it?
Yep.
Yeah.
Been sitting here waiting.
Oh.
All right, so it was,
what was
in
the before
Q&A.
you do that,
Yes.
I'm gonna see if I can find the. Here, I'm gonna transition us back to the other scene. I'm gonna see if I can find the outposts in Pyro. However many.
Okay. You want me to wait till after you know that, or just you want
No,
me to
go
ahead?
for it. I'm gonna look
All
while
right.
you're reading that.
So this was in an AMA, not Q&A. The AMA recap of the which one was this? October 9th, 2020. Star Citizen Birthday 2020 AMA recap. And it was just buried in the middle of it. Can you elaborate on the current thinking of how base building is supposed to work? Chris Roberts. We have done some pretty exciting plans. Yeah, we had some pretty exciting plans on base building / player settlement front. One of the fallouts of iCache, which we've been working on for full persistence, And every time we say iCache, just assume iCache is no longer a thing and just put in PES. The state of locations of all dynamic objects in the universe of Star Citizen is that recording and restoring a building you've just constructed is really no different to remembering where you dropped your coffee cup on some distant planet, or which shelf you placed it in your hab. Basically, iCache will enable us to allow all of you to settle the stars. When we first came up with the concept of player-built outposts, the land claims iCache hadn't been technically designed. Or land claims, there's no period there. iCache hadn't been technically designed, but now we have a system that will have a much higher degree of fidelity in remembering where each building or component is and what state it is in. So rather than just dropping down a singular outpost, you'll be able to place down various structures and connect them to things like power, generators, turrets, resource collectors, hydroponics domes, and so on. That basically is just RaStar right in the sentence. In parallel with this, we've been working on tools to build settlements or homesteads, RaStar again, for both artists, designers, more like RTS godlike view, and players a first-person view. So RaStar for us won't be God mode. That is something that I did think, but no, we will be using RaStar in a first-person mode. That's going to be interesting. With this, we've been rethinking how the Pioneer will work to make her more flexible rather than just spitting out a prefabricated outpost. We want her to be more of a mobile fabrication facility. That would be near the the way I can read, I swear I can read, would be near your building site. With a Pioneer, you'll be able to build these structures without having to ship in the component components parts, as long as you have supply of raw materials. So raw materials plus Pioneer equals components of base. Which means they have a system in mind that you can just hull E, hull C, hull whatever in your base, and just plop down a something you already have. So the Pioneer will let you build on site. So there's shipping in and there's building on site. You don't need a Pioneer to build a homestead, but if you want to build a decent settlement, you'll want to build something relatively quickly, as opposed to having to fly in prefabricated components from major landing zones. You'll want to have a Pioneer or a friend or someone who's willing to lend their services to you. And lastly, we're very excited about the gameplay that all of this will provide, and can't wait to see what kinds of player settlements sprout up over the huge amount of land area the game has. We will need iCache in and working before PES in working. Before we will see this in game, so expect more updates in the coming on this later next year. So iCache failed to meet expectations. That's why they had to switch over to PES and the entity graph. So entity graph is the replacement, not PES. Entity graph is the replacement for iCache. The entity graph is kind of the driving force behind PES, but PES is the persistence of it. The actual tech is called the entity graph. Just a little terminology thing. So that is base building being done. So we know it's going to be in person. So the Pioneer is now more like a construction crew than a building builder. Sure. So when you want to, either you can just buy the Pioneer out of game or in game, doesn't matter, and you can just have it by your outpost and just use it whenever you need to add on stuff, or maybe you rent it for a month or something in game, and you build onto your base for that month, and then you're done with the upgrade, so it goes back. Or you hire a player, or you hire an NPC with one, same thing. So it actually does open up so much possibility with the Pioneer. This entire post just made me so much happier about just the entire base building mechanic. And now cities ? So, yep, exciting times. Exciting times. So that is what I got for on the Pioneer. Did you find your outpost things?
I have not, and I know I saw it. I just can't remember where. The other thing, I have to temper expectations. So we did get confirmation that there are derelict outposts coming in 318, and so I wonder if that's what Jared meant, because the derelict outposts are also made with RaStar.
Bliss said, so what I'm hearing is we should all buy Pioneers. No. One in each friend group should.
Yeah.
You should
crew the
everyone
Pioneer.
should know somebody with one. Or just rent it when you need it.
I'm going to find wherever that was posted, and I will include it in the show notes and in the description for when I post this on YouTube. And if you're in my Discord, I will find it there, and I will post it, and I will ping everybody, and you guys will have to deal with it. But yeah. So yeah, I hope you guys have found that informative. I'm, like Nazar said, I always say, we get excited about tools, and RaStar and the procedural location tool, are two of the coolest tools in my opinion. Because they've gotten so good at making planets and moons, and doing the spacescaping stuff, and it's nice to finally be seeing this year the tools that they're going to use to populate the systems with more than just pretty planets and pretty spacescapes. Everything from underground facilities to space stations, to the outposts, and cave systems. All of that is really coming to fruition with these tools, and it's really excited to see. I need to wait for Pioneer LHD. Yeah, and it would be like a CB LHD, for a bunch of construction workers. But yeah, so let's see. I'm going to pull up my calendar because
I keep thinking, every time I think of using the whole series for like usable cargo, I always think about, I don't know if I posted it within your vision. No, you were talking on Paul's Discord a while back. The Lego ship I keep posting that I painted like the an Argo
like
style.
Argo.
I'll post it into Tree's Discord after the stream. Where it's the cargo is usable. And so if you're going to build a base, you pick that and a whole bunch of mule cranes. So that's your prefabs and your tools to move them around. Instead of a pioneer on site building the stuff. I can't wait for base building. I can't wait for base building. And being able to decorate habs. Those are like some of the biggest features I'm waiting for, just for like personal touches.
Star Citizen RTS and Star Citizen Colony Sim. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Random Star Citizen mode.
I love that game. The Stranded Alien Dawn is very RimWorld-esque, but very pretty, in a full 3D environment. So if you haven't tried that, I suggest it.
All right.
But yeah, I will keep an eye out for that post about how many outposts are coming with Pyro. And unless you have anything else, Nazers, I think that's all we have for this evening. Thanks again for everybody for hanging out with us and chatting with us, and I hope you have found this informative and interesting. I leave for work in the morning. I won't be back until late Sunday. Hopefully while I'm at work, I can download this off of Twitch, edit it, and get it up onto YouTube, and I will put it up as both a full-length segment, and then I'll break up the different segments because I've got a separate playlist for the monthly reports, for the Roadmap Roundups, for when we do scanner anomalies and spectrum pulses, all of that. But, and yeah, we will be back next Monday. We don't have a Roadmap Roundup this week. So next week, Nazarus, we got to come up with some content, dude. Oh, gosh.
Well, the Aegis thing is happening next week.
The what?
My Aegis scanner anomaly.
Oh yeah, you had that plan. Yeah, because next week's the Okay, so you got yours. I have to come up with content.
It's possible that we get shiny there for that one if we did want to do it on a not roadmap one. Otherwise, we just have to reschedule for later. So stay tuned for that one. You'll probably know in Tree's Discord if that's actually going to happen.
We are going to get shiny up on the. We are going to do an interview at some point because
Drake. Okay, so the whole thing on my Aegis scanner anomaly is it's going to be part of a series. I forget why I started with Aegis specifically. Because I was trying to get a friend to tell me what I should do, and he said, "Why is Aegis bad?" I'm like, actually, that's not a bad idea. So that's why Aegis at first, because it was a friend just who doesn't play Star Citizen.
If you ain't first, you're last.
Yeah. So I will be doing every single ship manufacturer. Drake is just going to be, forgotten, left out, and last. No, I have a love-hate relationship with Drake. Like, their ships are just stupid functional, and they are just really good at what they do. But I love to hate them. This will be interesting because he just says Daryl, like, yeah, they are. The entire purpose of the interest was to quell uprisings. It was a giant railgun to blast civilians.
I like the Vulcan though. They're trying to rebrand themselves. I love the Vulcan. I think
the rebrand actually happened already. So the current state of the lore is Aegis is now a very good, robust ship manufacturer that makes really good, long-lasting ships. So I think the lore team has a little bit of work they need to do, and this is like something I can actually call them on. There hasn't been enough current Aegis lore because they did rebrand themselves. In the lore of the game now, they are a fine company. They're still a bit iffy. They don't get a lot of military contracts because the messers, but they are really good workhorses for civilians. So there already was the break where the company almost completely crashed, and they came back from mostly because the Retaliator being such a good ship in the civilian market.
Yeah, with the modularity, soon TM.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Modularity and just the repairability and the longevity of it.
Mm-hmm.
So they are actually in good standing with the populace.
Dang it! I had something that I was going to add, and
I'm sorry.
Because the Drake CEO is going to be at IAE. Mm-hmm. I'm really hoping that they will continue that, and we will meet more of them.
I hope they start doing the rounds now.
Yeah. Yeah, next year it's hosted by Argo, and we meet the Argo CEO and what have you.
I want RSI.
We could do that too.
Argo would be good. Argo would be good.
Everybody has to get their turn.
I mean, I want Argo. If Argo's going to show up next year, I want my Argo Mega Freighter. I want my Argo either a whole series competitor or a whole E competitor. Give me my Argo Mega Freighter.
What they could do in the future is, because the IAE has the central location on Severus in I forget the name of the city on Severus. That's where the big IAE is, and they have satellite locations. They could have like different manufacturers sponsor different satellite locations each year. And if you want to go and see the CEO of this manufacturer, at this location, they'll speak and reveal a ship, blah, blah, blah.
And then you'll see on Spectrum the next... Dude, that would be so cool, having to be in-game at a specific spot.
Yeah, in order to see
get
the reveal.
A specific show, and then you have to read about it the next day, or, realistically, hours later, as you watch all the other people's shows.
Yeah, they post it on YouTube like a day or two later or whatever, but... you can actually be there live for the reveal.
That would be so cool. Like, they have the technology. They have it.
Yeah.
That would be so cool.
That'd be a cool in-game event and a cool way to release new ships.
Mm-hmm. The only problem is they'd leak before that happens.
Yep.
Unless they can find a way to dynamically update ships into the game on runtime.
Yeah. That would be, I don't know. I don't know if that's a thing. Either way.
Or maybe they should just get better at naming their chips files.
Yeah. Well, I need to close this out because I need to get
Yep.
to bed because I have a long day ahead of me tomorrow and I'm still sick. But thanks again for hanging out with us, everybody. And Nazeris, if you want to sign us off.
Yep. Thank you, everyone, for coming, as Tree said. And we'll be back next week with at least Aegis, possibly a shiny, whatever Tree ends up doing for his Scanner Anomaly and a Spectrum Pulse that we haven't been doing yet. But we do have several things tagged in a list that we can do. But if you guys do have segments or ideas for future segments, there is obviously come join us live, or Tree's Discord, or my Discord, YouTube comments, Twitter, anywhere you can find us. Shoot us a line on what you think we should cover, especially if it's long amounts of data, like it's been talked about since the beginning of time itself, or something that's kind of nebulous and not exactly all there. Other than that, again, thank you for joining, and as always, be kind, everyone.
Have a good night.